Good morning. Nice of you guys to drop by.
What a piece of junk. What are you talking about?
Don't be too proud of this technological terror you've constructed.
Look, don't worry. Everything's gonna be fine. Trust me.
I don't know what all this trouble is about, but I'm sure it must be your fault. Don't get technical with me.
This bickering is pointless.
Don't everybody thank me at once.
I don't know where you get your delusions, laser brain.
I'm glad you're here to tell us these things.
How could you even say that?
I got a bad feeling about this.
Well, come on. Everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
Would you get going, you pirate?
Get in there, you big furry-o! I don't care what you smell!
I'm getting too old for this sort of thing.
If what you've told me is true, you will have gained my trust.
I like the sound of that.
Get a shuttle ready.
I don't know. Fly casual.
Shuttle Tydirium, what is your cargo and destination?
Transmission commencing.
Hey everybody, thanks again for tuning in to another episode of the Shuttle Tydirium podcast. I am your host, Captain Jim Chadwick, also known as Hey Chadwick on the forums. I have sitting next to me my co-pilot, Phil Mead. How's it going, Phil?
I'm all right. I'm a little disappointed that no one took us up on our offer of 200 Imperial credits to give up their seat so that we can undertake our Ewok personnel transfer. We had to move some of our Ewok ground crew to a different location, and unfortunately we overbooked the flight. You know, this is a standard procedure on most Imperial carriers. So, unfortunately, we're going to have to ask the passengers in seats 60E, 18B, and 47C to get up from their seats. And I believe J-Bot will meet you at the airlock. I mean, for airlock for a transfer to a different ship, which we are docked with.
Aren't we already in mid-flight?
Yeah, that's why they're transferring to another ship.
Oh, okay.
It's a stealth ship. You may not see it.
On an unrelated
It's
note,
cloaked.
everybody on the starboard side, please shut your windows. There is a solar flare coming that is going to damage your eyes. So please shut the windows on the starboard side. You did say it was the starboard airlock, right?
Yeah, thank you for your cooperation.
Excellent. So our Master of Human Resources and Protocol, J-Bot, how you doing?
Well, I could be doing better, but apparently somebody didn't read the paperwork about how many Ewoks that we need on this flight, and they've actually taken a liking to our crew and the way we've handled them, and so we're spreading that out. But obviously that means we need more people, or more Ewoks, I should say, on here. And I'm just very, very disappointed that no one volunteered to take the 200 credits. But it's a good news. It's good news on the other half of this. So the people who've been called out, come on back. We still do have 200 credits to give you. You'll just have to see me back in the office. And don't mind the pink slip that comes with them. That's just a tax return form to make sure that the Emperor gets what he is owed out of your payment. So please step back through the door, and we'll take care of it right away.
I do see there's one gentleman that is not quite moving with the Ewoks. We might need to get the Jaws of Life up here. So
we'll send the Ewok Death Commando Squad.
And Chief Engineer Biff, could you perhaps come up and maybe devise a mechanical situation here? How you doing, Biff?
I'm doing great. Yeah, let me go in the back. Let me get out the tool here. Let me
Jaws of Life,
case.
Right?
Yep, there we got it. I'm gonna plug it in, and we'll go to town on this guy and get him out of that seat.
Look, I don't care if he's a doctor.
No, you got to get up, man. You got to move.
Need a doctor.
All right. Let's jump straight into the captain's question and turn down the close the soundproof blast doors to the cabin so we don't have to hear any screaming. But I'm going to go with a non-Star Wars question. So, if you could eat dinner with one historical figure, Past or present? Who would it be? And I'm going to go with Biff.
Oh, okay. I think I would like to have dinner with Mr. or I suppose I should say Sir Winston Churchill.
You mean drinks?
Damn it, he stole mine.
Yes. Yes. Be quick on your feet.
Yeah, he legitimately did. Dadgummit.
Tell us why. Then J-Bot can tell us why he would want to as well.
Okay. So I've really been fascinated with kind of his history, not only from like the First World War and how things didn't exactly work out real well for him, but then how he was a vocal proponent against the political regime that was growing in Germany at the time, until kind of all these forces came together at the kind of the early days of the Second World War, to where he's kind of thrust now into becoming the prime minister, when pretty much the free world is kind of collapsing all around him, and there they are, England is kind of standing, if you will, by themselves, and totally having to be that underdog, but yet still through communication to his people, keep the morale up, keep everyone going, and kind of that I suppose true underdog type status. So I think it would just be great to have dinner with the man and talk a little bit about kind of what he did to persevere, to keep buggering
calm
on.
and carry on.
Yeah, just KBO, just that whole philosophy. I just think it would be very fascinating to have that conversation.
All right, well, let's go on with J-Bot. And why would you like Winston Churchill? But this does not count as your answer. You still have to give a different one. But I'm just curious.
That's not fair. Well,
No,
it kind of goes along the same lines with what Biff was saying. I really wanted to know, I guess, kind of what's going through his head the whole time. I mean, I hate to call it a failure, but from the kind of issues he had from World War I and the decisions he made that got a lot of people killed, and how that kind of affected the way he led, quote unquote, in the Second World War. I'm always interested to kind of get people's emotional side of these things. History always records like the very technical aspects of stuff. They rarely record the emotions that the people are going through. So historical figures always seem statuesque. They're just very stoic. Oh, he stood, tall in the face of this, but you never really see the other side of it, unless that person happened to have like a memoir or something that they wrote, or a journal or a diary of sorts that kept track of those feelings in a moment. And that's something I've always been curious about.
See, I don't think he's responsible for killing all those people, because his whole plan was take these, large battleships that are now outdated, rush them past the mines and go straight to Istanbul. And then the stupid freaking captains who are too scared, because there's only so many mines. If you go in a row, you're going to hit a few mines, you'll lose a few ships, but they're going to be dead soon anyways because they're outdated, and just keep on trucking. But they lost a couple ships and they totally bogged down and they chickened out. Oh, we can't just
right, and that's why I said it wasn't so much him leading them as it was his decision that ultimately led to their fate.
Oh, I bet he was so frustrated.
Oh yeah, and I agree with you, and that's why I'd be curious. But as a second to this, it's along the same lines. I would actually like to sit down to have an open dinner discussion with the Emperor of France, Napoleon. I know we're going very war side this. But at least from what I've gathered from kind of, and I'm obviously not a historian, but from just the anecdotal evidence and that sort of stuff, he had to have had an amazing personality. Like, he just had to have had this kind of charismatic magnetism about him to have, if even half of the stories about kind of his exile and return and how he was treated even after he was exiled and came back by his own troops and stuff. If even half of those stories are true, the man must be an incredible, like, just person to talk to. Who knows? At least I don't know enough about him to know if the guy was evil or good or was just a product of his times. But he had to have something that would probably make dinner conversation amazing to have with. And of course, I'd love to know like what he would do different too.
I think part of it would be that they have to treat you as an equal, because I think Napoleon would just be a bit of a dick to talk to you.
Oh, right. That's what I agree to. is that's why I said if it's an open, like, honest conversation with the whole thing, and not just a, I'm above you, that sort of thing. But yeah, if it's an open two-way discussion, I think that would be great. It'll be interesting to the same thing, kind of see what it is that made him who he was, like how it is that people are willing to fight and die for the man.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Excellent. All right, Phil, what about you?
I think I'd like to hang out with the Marquis de Lafayette, who has other first names, so Gilbert de Motier, I think, Dumotier. We just mostly know him as Lafayette. So he's a French general who fought in the American Revolution when he was super young, I think. I think he was a teenager, practically.
And he's the reason why there's a lot of Fayettevilles all over America.
Exactly.
Including the one here in North Carolina is named after him.
Sure. And he went on, he was involved with a ton of stuff beyond the American Revolution. That was just like his warm-up act, really. Because he was involved with a lot of different events in the French Revolution, and all the way up to 1830, there was a, and I think
so all the Napoleonic years and everything.
Yeah. So he did a lot of interesting stuff, and I think he'd be interesting. He'd be a cool person to talk to.
Excellent. Cool.
Yeah, that's neat.
Well, for my particular pick, I have a degree in history, and I specialize in the American Civil War. And I was always the token Yankee amongst a bunch of Southerners. And I would love to have dinner with Lincoln because the man is fascinating. What I think a lot of people don't realize.
I can't help but laugh, but that's exactly what I said before the thing, wasn't it? Like you had walked off, and then I said I want to fight Lincoln. Everybody was quiet. They're like, "What?" I guess no one else saw that movie but me. But it's kind of funny that you brought him up a couple minutes later.
Right. So Lincoln, he was really savvy. I think like there've been a lot of people modern who say, well, he never even really wanted to free the slaves. If you read the Proclamation, Emancipation Proclamation, it doesn't really do that. But it's like the guy was from the Republican Party, which the entire point of the Republican Party was, the abolitionist party. So he wanted to free slaves, but he knew at the time the political climate was not. You couldn't just say that without having enough of a backlash. So he came out with this proclamation, which did it for so many. And when people are like, you can't do that, he said, look, I'm not doing it. You see, look at the fine print. I'm not doing what you say I'm doing. But it warmed everybody to the idea and eventually became the reality. And he's savvy. Everything he did was very manipulative. He took his biggest political enemy, Seward, and made him a Secretary of State, so that this guy can't criticize Lincoln too much because he's part of the freaking cabinet. I mean, he was brilliant and smart and just such an intelligent man and so interesting. Lived through a crazy time in U.S. history. I would just love to have dinner with him, just to talk to him. He's got so many interesting stories. That's my choice.
Definitely. Yeah, it's always a good choice.
Good one too.
Cool. All right, now. I did want to quickly mention something. I was listening to the Scum and Villainy podcast, and they had a group of different people. I'm not even done with it, but they were talking about the meta and how it's changed and this and that. And they were talking about, now that Palpatine and is nerfed and the Tide X7 Defenders is nerfed, that just really shows that the Imperials have nothing to stand on, because Imperials really are high pilot skill aces and swarms. And I'm sitting here thinking, that's it? That's the only thing you can field out of an Imperial list? Like, only interceptors and, V1s and TIE, Academy pilots? That's all you can field? There's no other ships in the entire list? There's no TIE bombers? There's no TIE Punishers? There's no X1 TIE Advanceds? There's no... I just kind of stunned at the perception of Imperials is that's the only thing you can do. Like that's the only possible. Like, oh, the rebels have alpha strikes and the scum have alpha strikes. I'm like, and the Imperials can't do alpha strikes? They got freaking TIE bombers. I don't know. I'm just kind of stunned at some of the impressions at how, about what Imperials are about. These are their only options. I don't know.
I can't really think of a good Imperial. What's a good Imperial Alpha Strike list?
4 TIE bombers. I've got a few.
But what do you put on them? I mean, what's guidance chip or long range sensors?
I actually like to put half and half.
Okay, but I mean, even if you had like 4 long range sensor TIE bombers.
No, you don't want 4 long range sensor TIE bombers.
Yeah, but I'm talking about getting that Alpha Strike in the first turn. It's not easy, man. I mean, I gotta agree with these guys.
To be honest, it's not that bad, and particularly you can get
against higher
some
pilot
Gamma
skill
Squadron
ships.
Vets.
Yeah, I mean,
Gamma Squadron Vets with Veteran Instincts are PS7. I mean, these days you don't see a lot of high pilot skill aces.
Yeah, I mean, seven might be able to do it.
Right, and they're just the highest generic with Veteran Instinct, and they go at PS7. And they go for 2 scimitars, so two of those vets with Veteran Instincts and 2 scimitars. I mean, I played it with 4 scimitar pilots back in the day, and I did very well. You got to learn to fly it, and it can be difficult. But now you can actually have half your list have long range scanners, and you can have the other half have flipping high pilot skill. I mean, it's not that hard. I mean, people say, "Oh, it's impossible. It's really hard to do." Have you even tried? Well, no. Well, I've tried. I've done it. It's not that hard.
Have you run it recently or back in like Wave 3? I mean,
I haven't played it in a few months, and it wasn't back in Wave 3. It was like a year ago.
Okay. I mean, it's it's fine to bluster, but I don't know. We're not really specialists in the competitive metagame. I don't know,
Right, but I mean, then it comes down to like, okay, so they're saying the only thing you can fly are aces and swarms, right? Well, that means that pretty much everybody's staying away from Imperials. So you're never going to have to fly against aces because they're saying, "Oh, we can't fly aces; they're no good," or they're hamstrung compared to other lists.
Well, everybody's flying Fen Rao instead.
Right, everybody's flying non-ace stuff. So
well,
I think
Fen Rao's an ace.
Yeah, one, but like I don't know the exact list that Jason had. For example, I played him this past week, or maybe the week before. I can't remember the exact thing. But he put together an Imperial list. It had a Punisher in it because that's what he loves to play. He had a Punisher in it, and he wiped Blake off the table. He was running a list that he's taking to Worlds, and it's not just a list that he's practicing with. It's a list that I believe he went 8-1 in the Crate Cup, including people in Nova. Like, he's really, really good with that list. He's been playing it for like as long as the Ghost has been out, and Jason really would have crushed him, except for I wandered over and started watching. And as soon as I came over, his dice went to crap. And he had to spend another 30 minutes trying to come back from it. But he was laying into Blake, and his dice just went bad. They went cold, but he still ran Blake off the table pretty well with it. And then went on and played other people in the local tournament scene and did really well with them. I think he said he was 3-1. And it was just something he threw together as Imperials. I'm not saying it's a great list, but I'm also saying that that's out there. If people, it's like we've always said, take something that you love, learn to fly it, and you'll be better than what anybody else will be just trying to throw the same thing together. And you can make a lot of lists, not any list. You can make a lot of lists really, really good, even against tournament meta, with practice, with learning the ships, with knowing what they can do and what they can't. And I think he's just gotten so good with the Punishers that's what's starting to happen. He's just starting to believe that he can fly it, and other people scoff at it. They get that like, "Oh, he's just flying a Punisher." It's what I used to get when I ran my Hawks. "Oh, it's just a Hawk." and then they're like, "What the hell just happened?" I was like, "Well, you got beat by somebody who's running Hawks because that's all they run." And yes, there's no kill list out there for the Imperials except for these fancy ones, but it doesn't mean that there's not other lists that are viable if they're given some play time and some practice time. So
what I found funny was the episode was about what they call Rebel Jank. In other words, just these Rebel fun lists that you can actually do surprisingly well with. just by taking stuff that looks fun. And here they were saying that you can't basically do that with Imperials. And I'm like, oh, come on, where's the imagination?
Yeah. No, I agree. That if there's space for quote rebel jank, there's space for rebel. There's other jank.
Like Imperial jank. Like why can't you? Yeah. But no one tries. They're just like, oh, the only thing the Imperials do are aces and TIE swarms. That's it, because no one else has ever flown anything else. It's just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just
try.
I
do agree that people don't give all these other things a chance, and that it probably is a lot easier to make a rebel list right now or a scum list right now that are really powerful without trying too hard. I can agree with you there.
Maybe not powerful, but at least fun and competitive. Like
above average competitive wise, I'd say it's easier to do those. I'm obviously not a tournament guy. I just see it on the tables. Whenever I wander around the people that are practicing, I don't see a lot of Imperials for whatever reason. But I don't. I see mostly rebels and stuff. Although I did hear people saying, well, with that last I guess preview that just came out with the new, I'm not going to get the name right, the new TIE with the rockets.
Avenger?
The Avenger, yeah, that people are like,
Oppressor?
Whichever that one is. Ooh, that might actually give and people were suddenly interested, like, ooh.
Yeah, that opens up a lot of possibilities for the Imperials.
So yeah, maybe that's on the horizon, mate. So maybe 6 months from now, it's a completely different discussion on these other sites. Well, the Imperials are destroying everything. I can't believe they're doing this.
Right. Yeah, it always goes back and forth, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So luckily, we don't have to worry about that.
And a lot of that is impression, like Jim is talking about. I mean, there's a lot of it's kind of a loaded term, but groupthink.
Yeah.
Going on, like Imperials. For a long time, their competitive ships were, Centerfell, etc. Aces, high pilot skill aces, TIE defenders, Palpatine shuttle, and when those get taken away or nerfed, then everybody sort of reflexively pulls away from that stuff, and
I think
may not think there's anything else worthwhile. Yeah,
I think it's a touch of grass is greener. Like, oh crap, somebody just walked all over my yard. Man, my neighbor's looks really good right now. By comparison, it's like, no, yours is probably okay. You just need to practice it a little bit.
Well, if you're just used to Sunterfell, and that's what we've been playing for like 4 years, with a little bit of turret wing kind of knocking you off that, and then suddenly that's not valid anymore. You just kind of go, oh gosh, I can't do anything. But I just wish people would think a little outside the box. Try some things. Don't just go say, oh, that's bad, or no one else is doing it, so obviously it sucks. Just actually try it yourself. That's all. All right, we can move on. I had my vent. Yeah, and rant. Where's my restraining bolt?
You got decompressed. Very good.
We still never found it after the beer rant from the last episode.
All right. So tonight we're going to talk about Phil is going to bring us into the ready room, I should say.
Yeah, we're going to go to the ready room and look at a scenario from a promising scenario designer.
Bring up that hollow, Biff.
It's totally me. It's actually J-Bot. You never knew.
Let's go to the ready room.
Stand by alert. Stand by alert. Death Star approach. Estimated time environment range 15 minutes. Yahoo! Got it! I got it! Great kid! Don't get cocky! Chewie, get us out of here!
Biff, it's all you.
Oh, it's all me. Okay. Sorry. So yeah, today we're going to talk about a scenario that I've been developing for about 2 years now, and I have run it to not such great success at Gencon 2016, which prompted me to do a fairly major rewrite of the entire scenario. The scenario I'm talking about is my Imperial Star Destroyer scenario. It's got a really, really swanky title called Imperial Star Destroyer, a massive mission for the X-Wing miniatures game. And it is pretty massive. Yes.
Yeah, I've seen these pictures, and I'm still cross-eyed from some of this stuff.
Yeah, it's massive in more ways than one.
Yeah, you gave me one of those mats, one of those 6x3 custom-made mats of the Star Destroyer. That is awesome. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, and this particular scenario that I'm developing, I'm doing a convention version of it, if you will. Convention being that, when you go to conventions, usually have larger tables than what you might have at your local game store. So you got the 6x3 mat, the image. It's the same scale and everything. But at the convention, I play on a 6x4. So it's a little bit bigger, and it allows for a little bit more, obviously, room. But you can also get a little bit more action in there by spreading some of the elements out, separating them a little bit more. So
That's Warhammer size.
It is. Okay. Huh.
Yeah. Actually, that's what we played the TIE Punisher mission. I tried to put some of those rocks and stuff along the edge to kind of take up 6 inches on each side to kind of make it more 3x6. But yeah.
So to kind of fills 3 elements of a mission. We've got, the story, we've got the squad list, and then we've got objectives and mechanics of the game. Going to try to go through all of those relatively quickly here tonight. So I'm going to start off with the first one, the story. You could probably guess that this particular mission is set within the Episode 4 movie, Return of the Jedi, during the Battle of Endor.
You mean Episode 6?
Did I?
You
Yeah,
said
sorry.
Episode 4.
I said
6.
4. You're right. Episode 6. It's the
We
pressure.
can cover it up with Phil saying that one famous line in his famous accent.
It's the Mon call.
Admiral Akbar.
Last long against 2 Star Destroyers.
Or, it's a trap. Sorry, I'm holding the printout. And that's one of the main titles there. It's a trap.
So yes, you're right.
Yep. Leave that alone. That's all Phil's domain now. He plays all Mon Calamari from this point forward.
Right.
We know this.
He does a good job too.
But he won the contest.
Yeah,
that's true.
And then officially played one in the drama, the radio drama we're doing at this point.
Yeah. He's got credits as a Mon call now. So
that's right.
It's official. So you're right.
Is it my character of Mon Calamari?
It's official. Get it?
Official. Oh, that was bad. I love it.
So back to the mission. So yes, you're right. It takes place Episode 6. So I'm playing this as kind of like a what if type scenario. I am trying to include as many of the pilots that took part in that battle in this mission that are cards within the game. So later on when we go through the squad list, you'll hear a lot of familiar names because I'm trying to include them in this. So the objectives are pretty straightforward. The rebels are either trying to destroy the Imperial Star Destroyer or at least render it ineffective by destroying the main armaments, the big huge guns, so that it's less effective as a battle platform in the ensuing space battle. Because of course the rebels are kind of buying time until Han and his group take the shields down that are protecting the Death Star, so that all the fighters and so forth can then go ahead and make the main attack on the Death Star. The Imperials kind of have the opposite. They are going to be defending the Imperial Star Destroyer, while at the same time trying to take out as many fighters as possible, so that it is more difficult for the rebels to achieve the main objective of the Battle of Endor, and that is the destruction of the Death Star. It's a victory point based system is how we determine who wins this mission scenario. Essentially the Imperials are going to start off with all of the points because the Imperials get points for how many hull remain on the bridge, which is kind of the principal target for the Imperial Star Destroyer, and how many of the main armaments remain at the end of the mission. Whereas the rebels will get points for inflicting damage on the bridge hull and by destroying main armaments. And then just to add in a little bit of extra flavor, there is a bonus points that can be awarded to either side that's based solely on the number of rebel ships that are still on the play surface when the game comes to a conclusion. And when you total all those up, that determines, whoever's got the most points is declared the winner. And that's all over with. And kind of true to form, I'm giving in this scenario the Imperials the initiative. They surprised the rebels, but of course they weren't kind of necessarily expecting to be engaged by the rebels. But still, I went with the flavor of giving them the initiative for this scenario.
I like how at one point, you've got these random events, and one of them actually is titled, "The shields are still up. We've got to give Han more time." So that was pretty cool. Because I think it's got a lot of flavor and a lot of story, in this particular mission. So I really like that aspect.
That's cool. Thanks. So this mission will drive to conclusion when one of three things happen. Either the rebels are successful in destroying the ISD by destroying the bridge. That's the key to it. Or the Imperials wipe out the rebels, and the rebels don't have any more fighters out on the board. Those would be two cases. The third case, there is kind of a clock running, and in the mission setup, we've got a little pile of tracking tokens that are set off to the side, and essentially, at the end of every round, we're pulling a tracking token out of that pile. And if we ever get to a point in the end phase and there's no more tokens in the pile, the mission is over, and you go ahead and tally up the points. We talked a little bit about the map. Again, it's 4x6. It's about maybe about a third of a top-down view of an Imperial Star Destroyer. I don't quite think that it's half.
Superstructure of the Star Destroyer. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely more towards the rear. You don't get to see the exact bow of it, but it's top-down view. I really like the graphics that I found for it.
Yeah, I do too. That's excellent. And you're doing this at Gencon, so I'm very excited. I want to play in this mission. So
yeah.
We'll be running it.
Yeah, you don't get to play. You got to work. You got work to do.
Yeah, we'll be working plenty during the main narrative event. So this is like the one mission where we're going to be able to actually play.
Yeah. Yep.
We're not.
So for all those listeners that have been dying to do something with some of the members of the podcast crew, there's your chance. This will be Friday nights.
That or buy us drinks.
So maybe I'm out of maybe this is out of order of your plan here, of your bullet points, but how many players does this is like the minimum and maximum on this? Just so people get an idea. Like, is this something that you really should have at least like 6 players doing it, or is it something that like 2 people could get away with?
You could do this with 2 people. But I think it would take a fairly long time because you're going to be running 12 ships on each side. So it would take a while for, just one person on each side to work through, but you could do it. We have, in all the play testing, we've run with a minimum of 6 people total. So 3 on each side. For the Gencon event, I believe I have it set up for 4 to 6. And we'll have a couple other people that will be joining, from the podcast crew. So we'll probably be playing with somewhere between 8 and 10 people is my guess. And 10 is about the maximum that we have play tested with. It starts getting a little crowded around the table when you get 10 people.
Yeah.
As you can probably imagine with attrition, people, we get to a point to where now there's nothing for you to fly. Because there's only so many ships out on the board.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Now, are these rules going to be available for people to, to try out?
Absolutely. Right now, as a matter of fact, this a version of this is available on BoardGameGeek.com, but I am still in the process of tweaking it. But we will certainly be making this available. We're targeting about mid-May is when we're going to be releasing information not only on the narrative, but all of the missions that I am going to be running. I will include the scenario rules so people can try them at home or just read through them if they're interested ahead of Gen Con.
Now, for those at home that just think that this might actually sound kind of cool, just to show how kind of cool it is, there's actually rules in it for rebels that have taken a little bit of damage to actually ram the bridge of the Star Destroyer. Much like in episode 6, was it Arvel that did it?
I think that's right. I think it was Arvel that went in.
Arvel Krend, yeah.
Yeah, Arvel. So, boom, and he rams the bridge and takes out the Star Destroyer. So there's actually rules for that to happen in this mission. So that's how cool it is. So go on, Biff. Go on. Tell us more.
Okay, so let's talk just a little bit about the ISD itself, because it is going to be treated as a huge ship in this game. It's a pilot skill of 7, so it's going to be in combat. It'll be fairly high in the order. And it has actions that it can perform on each round. It's got a target lock action, which I'll touch upon in a little bit. And it also has the ability to rotate the hard points and missiles that will be scattered on the surface, kind of the main hull of the ISD. So it has a bunch of rotate arc actions.
Now, you say it's a huge ship, but I almost think that it's not quite exactly those rules, and it's really almost like really huge. I mean, it's kind of like like those rules, but like even bigger. So,
and that's true. Yep, because you certainly aren't moving the ISD. That's not going anywhere.
Oh, I thought maybe we'd be moving the entire table around the like the gaming hall and be like, all right, we're shooting at that table, and then
all right, end of the round, we have to move the table 3 feet that way.
That's right.
Yep.
That almost sounds like fun. Now we need an entire banquet hall to run our X-wing for 2018. What are y'all doing? It's more of a big size. Each person gets a table.
Well,
we got to get tables on wheels.
That's right.
They do.
Tables on wheels. Oh, it bumped. Crap.
Before X-wing, I went to Dragon Con one year, and in like the basement, they had this game there was a Star Destroyer about almost as long as a car, and it was actually like big and built of wood, and it was on like one of those movable pallet things that you'd kind of have to move around, and you'd have these flight stands of X-wings and TIE fighters, and someone had developed a game, and they had like a giant like 2 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot die that you would roll the die, and you'd have to move out your X-wings and your flight of TIE fighters, and they had this huge Star Destroyer, and it was some sort of Star Wars fleet battle that just looked insanely awesome before X-wing came out.
That's the casual gaming at its best. That's what that is. That's wow, those guys, they're expert level casual gamers. That's what that is.
Yeah, like they made up a whole game and just were running with it. It was really cool looking. So I'm sorry to get sidetracked. Go on, please.
Sorry, we drift off. That happens.
We'll reel it back in. So much like any huge or epic scale ship that we've got in X-wing right now, it will run off of energy. So the ISD has an energy limit of 10, and it gains energy each turn through an internal reactor that provides 6 energy per turn. And then there are 4 power relays on the surface of the ISD that will provide 1 energy each per turn. So with the internal reactor and the 4 power relays, it's going to collect during its gain energy phase until things start getting damaged, 10 energy per turn. And that energy is going to be used to perhaps regenerate shields through the shield generators that are up on the superstructure, or to power up the various hard points. There'll be 6 hard points out on the ISD. So use the energy to fire the hard points, as well as, although we're not using energy for them, there will be 4 missile batteries on the surface of the ISD as well. So that's kind of what the ISD is going to be. And the main armament, although I'm going to have models out for the main armament. So again, I'm talking about the big capital ship guns. Although there are models out on the table that the rebels are intended to attack and destroy, they don't shoot during the game. The Imperial player doesn't control them at all. Unlike the hard points and missiles, those will actually be used as a part of the anti-fighter defense of the ISD.
So it's kind of like the Death Star.
Yeah, why not?
So in putting together this scenario, I just kind of felt that the big guns are just kind of not very thematic for trying to go after an X-wing. Their ability to track, to be able to fix on such a small target, in my opinion, wouldn't be practical. It's like kind of taking the battleship 16-inch guns and say, hey, go chase after that F-18 that's trying to blow you up. It's not really practical.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but, people may not realize.
Well, is this one supposed to actually be engaged with any of the other capital ships from the Rebel side as well, or is this more too far away? I wasn't sure if this was also being engaged by other large capital ships at the same time.
That's a real good question. So thematically, yes, there's the big raging battle going on around this one ISD, and there is a special event that the rebels could roll where you have another ship. I pick on the home one. But the home one makes an attack on this particular ISD and destroys one of the main armaments. So that kind of brings in the thematics of, yes, there is a bigger battle surrounding this particular ISD.
Okay, so that in a lot of ways that would make sense for why those main ones aren't even bothering to try and look at X-Wings. They're too busy firing off at something else.
Even if they were trying to engage the X-Wings, it would probably be pretty futile at that close range.
Right. I like the idea of them, still blasting away at something that is off the map. while they're zooming by, because that is very thematic. It's what you would see in the movies when they had the big space side battles. Is the larger guns aren't even paying attention to the fighters. They're just kind of gnats just circling around the outside of these large ships. So I am very glad that that's not part of it, that it's not, hey, Imperial player can turn one of these a turn and take a shot at any ship on the table. Like, oh, geez, that doesn't seem fair.
Yeah. So at the beginning, when we get this thing going, I just touch on kind of mission setup. When we get going at the convention, I, as the GM, will have all of the hard points set up. The missile batteries will be set up, and the power relays will be set up. The rest of the models have got a very specific place where they need to be, just for thematics. The main armament will be where they're supposed to be. Shield generators will be where they are. And then the Imperials will go ahead and deploy half of their force. They're going to start off with 12 ships. We'll get into the details of their squad list here in just a moment. But they'll pick 6 of their 12 ships, and they will deploy them onto the map in the specific areas. And I'll kind of describe what those are in just a second. Then the rebels will go ahead and deploy all 12 of their ships. And then finally, the Imperials will deploy the remaining 6 ships. And when we were doing some early play testing, my initial setup rules had the Imperials deploying all of their forces first, and then the rebels would come in. And that was a little bit too much of an advantage for the rebels. They got a little too much information off of where maybe like the interceptors were in relationship to the bombers or something, and they were able to take advantage of that information. And it was just a little too much of a benefit to the rebels. So I made this modification to where I still wanted to have thematically the Imperials be kind of slightly caught off guard by the fact that the rebels engaged them. but didn't want to completely tip the hands of the Imperials to the rebels. So that's why I split the Imperial placement up in that.
I like it. I like it. I think it's good. I think it is thematic. I think, you know, you get some advantage to the rebels, but don't entirely screw the Imperials.
Yeah. Yep. So the Imperials, when they get to place their ships out, if you can imagine the map, the aft or stern section of the ship is basically kind of consider that to be the Imperial edge, the Imperial side. And the entire back edge within range 1 is fair game for deployment of the Imperial forces. But they also have the ability, if they want to place some of their ships on the bow edge of the map, which is kind of like the rebel side of the map, the bow edge of the map, way off in the corners in a range 1 by range 1 square. So on either side of the map, way up in the corner. So there's kind of 3 areas, 2 of them are very small, that the Imperials can deploy their forces in. The rebels, on the other hand, they have a smaller area that they can deploy their forces in. Their primary area is on the bow edge of the map in a centered rectangle that's range 1 by 6. They can deploy their forces. Or they can also deploy their forces in 2 small squares, again, range 1 by range 1, that are centered on the neutral edges, the short edges of this 4 by 6 play surface. I kind of split the forces up this way. I didn't want to have a 1 or 2 turns before the ships engaged each other. So by positioning the deployment zones in the way that I did, you're usually guaranteed that people will be shooting at each other during the combat phase of range 1. And I'm talking ship to ship, not ISD to a rebel ship. Mm-hmm. The other advantage to this is it does give the rebels, especially with the deployment zones that are on the neutral edges, almost immediate ISD targets, with the main armament basically being laid right in front of the rebel ships as easy targets.
I was thinking about that.
On.
Because I do like the fact that you can have all like the Imperials and Rebels even put themselves in like weird positions, and you kind of have ships everywhere. But one of the things I was thinking about is, as the Rebels, you have a dearth of targets. I mean, you can fire at all these components, and it just seems like, you know, they just fly around with the guns open, you know, just rah, rah, rah. They're gonna hit something. I don't know. I like it, but it's crazy. I want to see it. I want to try. Like I want to. Yep. I can read the mission and can conceive it, but I want to actually see how the play works. It's really intriguing to me.
Yeah, it feels like there's going to be a lot of decision paralysis or analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
That of people trying to figure out, like, what, especially if you got 3 people, 4 people on a side, all trying to decide on one strategy of attack or defense. Like, you know, like, oh God, what are we going to do? Do we go after one side and then try and sweep over? I mean, it looks like a tactical kind of cluster, to put it bluntly. Like, where do you start? And I'd have to be on Jim's side of, I'd need to see it on a table before I'd even be able to come up with an idea of where I would want to go with ships. But I would also say it looks like the type of thing where you have to kind of pick a strategy and stick to it, because there's not really an opportunity to, at least it doesn't look like there's an opportunity to adapt if you make if you like, oh, we're going after the left-hand side, for example. Like, oh no, they've arrayed against us. Let's everybody sweep to the right. It doesn't look like it looks like there's almost too much there for you to kind of go back on a decision once you've made it, but who knows?
Well, but one thing I love about these type of events is that you can then participate in the time-honored tradition of, well, if those other idiots had just followed my plan, we would have won.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the absolute thing for it. Well, if we'd all just followed my plan, we did follow your plan. Well, but our dice were bad. That was the whole thing. I mean, really, if we'd rolled fine, we would have been perfect. Their dice were hot. Our dice were cold.
Yeah.
I didn't have chalk for my cue stick.
Right.
Shooting pool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do love it. I have some questions, but if you got more to continue, I'll save them till the end of the lecture and then ask them at the end.
Yeah, let me cover just a couple more things because in response to your question, or at least your statement about you don't think that there's a lot of flexibility, it's surprising in the playtests that we have done how both the Imperials and the Rebels changed their strategy during the game. And some of that comes about because of the reinforcements that appear, and we haven't really touched upon them, but as a special event and as kind of a random event, reinforcements can appear, and they can appear in some very interesting locations that all of a sudden change the dynamic of the game. And even just in, let's say your strategy is just put a bunch of fighters and they're just going to go straight at the superstructure to take out the bridge. The Imperials can oftentimes, I'll say, detect that or recognize that, and they can pretty quickly bring forces to bear, and the Rebels are essentially forced into having to come up with a different strategy. I've been really impressed with the level of flexibility that the game has brought about. A lot of it I didn't think was going to be there and was surprised at what has manifested. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah. I really like your mechanic for events, but we can get to that.
So let's talk a little bit about the list, the ships that are going to be coming in. I don't know if
so
if
I was all
would
prepared.
Talk about
printed
that.
This out. Yeah. So I know you asked advice on some of these before, and I had fun. Give my opinion. We had to watch out about making any TIE bombers, a little too deadly.
Yeah. Yep. Does anybody want to walk through the list? Phil, would you like to walk through like the Rebel lists? Or
Sure, I'll go through.
Okay.
So basically, you've got elements from 4 different groups here. You've got your basic, variety of fighters that you saw in the Battle of Endor.
Oh, go on. You got 4 squadrons. Talk about their squadrons. You got to be thematic here, man.
Oh, darn.
You got green squadron, blue squadron, gray squadron, and red squadron. Go on.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So you've got 3 A-Wings from Green Squadron. You've got Jake Farrell, Arvil Krind, and Green Squadron pilot. So you can have Arvil Krind ram a bridge here, just like he did in the movies.
Yeah. It is his destiny.
And basically, those guys have got proton rockets and a variety of other upgrades. I think they all have auto thrusters. We have some heavy hitters from Blue Squadron. That's the B-Wings. So we got Ten Num, Ibitizam, and a Blue Squadron pilot. Those have all got fire control system and a variety of ordnance weapons. I think they all have proton torpedoes and either advanced proton torpedoes or ion torpedoes. I think just Ten Num has ion torpedoes. And they all have different cannon weapons also.
Yeah. I have to ask, who is Ibtisam?
She's a female Mon Calamarian pilot. I think she showed up in a Rogue Squadron comic.
But not the novel.
I don't think she was in the novel, no.
Okay.
Then we have Y-Wings from Gray Squadron. So you have everyone's favorite Y-Wing pilot, who is, say it with me, Horton Salm.
Horton Salm. Actually, I do like Dutch. Sorry.
Yeah, whatever. Horton Salm's better. And all these guys have torpedoes. They have proton torpedoes and ion torpedoes. And guidance chips and twin laser turrets.
The dreaded twin laser turrets.
Yeah. And also, ion effects in this game are also very significant. So
and the fact that this table's so crowded, you know, when you do some splash ion, you're going to hit stuff, you know.
Yeah, it could be very. You could do a lot of damage with those ion torpedoes.
Yep.
And they've also all got guidance chips, I think.
Yep.
And now there's one, and Artenzalm has R2D6, which is the elite pilot talent droid, and he has expertise.
Yeah. And TLTs.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think you should just have an elite pilot talent for free. I think you could probably do that as a game designer, but it's essentially what's happening here.
Well, one day maybe he'll have a card for that.
Yeah, and then we've got
we'll make one.
Yeah, exactly. We've got 3 X-wings from Red Squadron, led by Wedge Antilles, and they've got proton torpedoes and various astromechs stuff.
And things.
Yes. In the Empire has 3 groups of fighters here. They have TIE Interceptors, TIE Fighters, and TIE Bombers. And they have an elite TIE Interceptor group led by Sunter Fell. I think it's basically like Saber Squadron 181st type TIE Interceptors here, if you're familiar with
them. That's
right. So he's got, Sunter Fell leading Turfineer, which is his XO, I think. And then Fell's Wrath, who is presumably a dude who works for Sunter Fell.
Oh, yeah. He's his muscle.
Yeah.
Yep.
We also have some TIE fighters. We have Hal Runner and Wing Gundark and Night Beast, who are known as hipster TIE fighter pilots.
Yeah.
We also have 4 TIE bombers. We have Major Reimer, Captain Jonas, and 2 scimitars, and they're loaded out with different ordnance weapons. You have missiles and torpedoes and all sorts of things.
Pew pew, lots of stuff. No bombs.
Yeah, no bombs.
You don't want to bomb your own Star Destroyer.
Right. And then you can get reinforcements, and that's basically the generic Green Squadron, Blue Squadron, Gray Squadron, Red Squadron pilots.
Yeah.
And it's just pretty much the generic versions of all these pilots you can get as reinforcements from the special events.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, those are the fighters that will be participating in things. So I think about the only other thing that maybe I kind of touch on would be what some of the units, the attributes of the units that are on the ISD itself. So up on the superstructure, there's going to be these great models of the bridge, the antenna array, the shield generators. They're obviously big. So I wanted to have a thematic element about how do they interact with play and combat.
These are the combat scenery models, right?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, all the models that I'm going to be using in this game come from combat zone scenery.
Is it combat zone scenery?
Yep. They did. I had this idea for this scenario, and I had been communicating to them about ideas for models and stuff, and they took a lot of my ideas and created these models that I'm using in this scenario. So they did a great job.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
still
super
tickled
cool
with the models.
Yeah, all the we have some pictures from you of all the models on the Star Destroyer, and it's pretty awesome. And that's one of the these guys are the same guys who made the asteroid base that we're going to be using as Grayskull base in the main event.
Yep, and they've
Yeah, we'll be Biff's been under orders to videotape as he creates, builds, customizes, paints, etc. this scenery. So stay tuned to the YouTube page because that will start showing up. I've actually got the first video. I just need to do some tweaking to it, and then it'll get posted soon. So yeah, he's under orders to do that, and he seems to be carrying on as far as I can tell. But yeah, it looks really good. The videos look really good. So I can't wait to see these in person because it's hard for me to get a sense of scale until you kind of see these next to X-wing ships on the table. So.
Oh, I'm so excited to play with these because I've seen the pictures and they look amazing. They look really good, and some people are going to be able to win some of this terrain, from the Gencon event. And I know those of you who aren't going to Gencon, but you are interested in the global campaign, take a look at actually getting some of their scenery. Because I know of already some people, even just hearing the audio drama, have said, "Oh, I can't wait! I want to run this in my local area." And if you're really looking for some prize support, charge a little bit of money just to get some prize support. Look into Combat Zone Scenery to actually order that equipment. Actually order the base to do for the campaign.
Yeah,
so,
and the asteroid base itself is an awesome piece of terrain that you can use. You can use it for a ton of X-wing scenarios. A lot of scenarios call for some sort of base or asteroid base.
Yeah, like I don't know, one with TIE Punishers or something might have one.
Exactly. Asteroid bases are very popular in the Star Wars universe.
Well, there's also a kind of very little used opportunity that exists in X-wing anyway, and that's to use the epic ships as obstacles. Just have them on the table. So even if there's not a scenario involved, there's nothing stopping you from using a very nice piece of terrain as just a random obstacle on the table.
Yeah, that's true.
So hey, from seeing the Punisher stuff, and I recently uploaded our Beggars Canyon one. Just having fun scenery on the table makes the game even more fun.
It makes a huge difference having something thematic on the table rather than just the flat cardboard asteroid tokens.
Right. So don't think that any of this stuff that you see us using or is online is a one-use thing. You can use it for all sorts of missions just to throw flavor, and it draws attention to the game too. If you're at your local game store, people are like, "Ooh, what is that? That looks awesome."
Yeah. It's great for a nice thematic game.
Yeah, and if you're looking to expand your casual game group, that one of those earlier episodes I did was about doing these demo games or pulling these games out there that look good, that people go, "Oh wow, what is this? I want to try it." Even the tournament guys are like, "Wow, that looks amazing. I want my X-wing to look like that." My X-wing game.
Yep, and I know we harp on this a lot, and I know we've gotten a little bit off track from Biff's flowchart here, but we ran our Beggars Canyon one this weekend. We had two people, I think they were just in the store to buy comics, and they wandered over. It was a husband and wife. They wandered over, and she stood there watching the game, like asking questions about how to play. And her husband's like, "You ready to go?" And she's like, "I'm not leaving until I find out who wins." Like, because she was so engrossed in it.
Yeah.
She was so engrossed in it. Like, and she doesn't play. She might now, who knows? But it was the type thing where cool terrain, stuff that really sticks out, it draws people to it, even if they don't play. And you never know when you're going to find that one person who wanders in who has been thinking about the game and just never took the plunge. And that's how you grow the community, is you get people over, you invite them to watch, you explain any questions that they have, and the scenery is kind of that magnet that gets people into it. So never be afraid to steal terrain from the 40K players to put it on your table.
No, they're all gone from. They're practically like an extinct beast in our area. So there's all this terrain collecting dust at the back. So
the only problem with the terrain in our stores, there's actually too much of it. So we're trying to kick chairs out of the way. There's no place to put our storage cases for things because there's so many shelves of terrain and boxes of terrain that haven't moved in months, except for us. So, all right, sorry about that.
So as a guy who's got a serious scenery addiction problem, I agree completely with everything that you're saying. And I would even go so far as to say, off of my experience, it has been the scenery alone that has kept people engaged in some of the missions that I have cobbled together, because they were pretty much junk to begin with. And without that,
the secret.
without that thematic element to keep people sucked in, they would have just walked away from the table. So
That's right. Now this mission's crap, but man, that scenery, woo!
Yeah.
So true.
Biff is a master at rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, is what it sounds like.
Well, he did join us, right?
That's true.
Go on, carry on.
So all the models that are going to be up on the superstructure, they're going to obstruct movement. You treat them just kind of like a ship. So if you are going to overlap them, you go through all of the touching rules, and that's again thematic because it would be kind of difficult for ships to really fly around those. So I wanted to bring that element in, and those physical models will also obstruct attacks. I wanted to make it a little more difficult to be able to take shots at the bridge. So by having the physical models begin to obstruct shots on the bridge, it makes it a little bit more challenging for the rebels, especially if they happen to roll lucky on reinforcements and they get people to drop in spots that are along that aft edge of the play area. They're almost on a beeline to go right for like the shield generators or for the bridge itself. So it just adds a little bit of extra complexity and still keeping things somewhat thematic. And then the weapons that are placed on the surface of the hard points and the missiles, again, not the main armaments because they're not shooting, but the hard points and the missiles, I've got these little templates that basically create mobile firing arcs for each of those hard points and missiles. And that plays back to the ISD having that rotate arc action. So each weapon, each hard point or missile will have to face in a particular direction, and that's going to establish the firing arc. So it's not 360-degree fire for the missiles or for the hard points, even if single laser turrets or single turbo lasers could fire outside of arc. And in this game, they're not going to be able to do that.
Isn't it cool to actually have a rule for mobile firing arc as opposed to just having to try to describe?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely makes it easy.
Because I know this was done before that, mobile firing arcs were a thing. So.
Right.
Yeah, it did simplify stuff. So as far as like stats, quickly, the hard points and the missiles, they're going to have an agility of 1, a hull of 3, and shields of 2. So 5 hits will take out a hard point or a missile. The shield generators, they have an agility of 0. They're a big fat target, but they're a little bit more robust. They've got 4 hull and 8 shields each. The bridge, it's a relatively hard target to hit just because of its size. It's going to have an agility of 2 and a hull of 5. But as I mentioned earlier, before the bridge can take any damage, you've got to take out the 2 shield generators. They have to be destroyed. There is an exception, and that's the suicide attack that Jim was mentioning earlier. We'll touch on that in just a minute. The power relays, these might seem like insignificant little targets. Obviously, if you destroy one, you're going to take away 1 energy from the ISD. They'll have an agility of 1, and much like the hard points and missiles, it's a hull of 3 and shields of 2. But if you take out one of these power relays, there is a chance that a power surge is going to go back up to the bridge and ionize the bridge. So the rebel player, after destruction, he's going to roll a die. If you get anything other than a blank, so a hit, a crit, or a focus, the bridge is going to take an ion token. And whenever the bridge gets an ion token, whether it's through a power relay or the rebels have made an attack, and it gives the bridge an ion token, the rebel player is going to be able to roll yet again another die, and depending upon what he comes up with, he's going to spread ion tokens to other units that are on the ISD. If he rolls a hit, you're going to put an ion token on any 2 weapons of his choice. So we're excluding main armament. What's the point of putting an ion token on a main armament? It's not going to do anything for you. If he rolls a blank, you're only going to put 1 ion token on one weapon. A focus, you're going to be able to put an ion token on a power relay. And if you get the crit, you would be able to place an ion token on either of the shield generators.
I have to say I like the random aspect of it all. Like, if it was me, I'd probably come up with some, oh, this is what it ionizes, you know? But I like the actual random aspect of it. It's something I don't probably put enough in my games when I design something.
And if a unit gets an ion token, it's basically rendered inoperable for more than likely a turn. So a weapon would not be able to fire the next time it has an opportunity to. The power relay, it's not going to allow the ISD to gain energy, and once that occurs, then the ion token comes off. We just touched upon what happens to the bridge if it gets an ion token. The shield generators, I'm treating shield generators as almost as if they're large ships, and that it takes 2 ion tokens to affect a shield generator and render it inoperable. So once it gets to 2, it begins to limit the ability of the Imperial player to regenerate shields.
Yeah, I do like that.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Let's touch on the suicide attack, and then that'll probably wrap it up. We got special events. So the suicide attack, this is really, really fun, because in the play testing that we have done, not only is there a decision on whether or not the rebel player is going to pursue this special attack, but even the Imperials will start reconsidering whether or not they want to attack certain rebel ships.
Oh, really?
Because it may make a rebel now eligible to perform this attack. So let me describe it. So this is a special attack performed by the rebels only. The ship in question has to have at least taken 1 hull damage, and neither shield generator can still have any shields remaining. So that thematic element is kind of like the bridge has lost all of its shields. Right. Maybe not necessarily individual weapons, but the bridge no longer has any shields.
Like in the movies. Sir, we've lost our main deflectors.
And that's a
you got it.
firepower.
Yep. I don't want anything to get through. And the fact that the rebel ship has had to have taken 1 hull was one, just to limit it so that not every rebel ship can make the attack, but to also
all in one turn charge.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
But to bring in this idea of, to stay thematic to what happens in the movie, to where a ship took damage and kind of lost control of his ship, somewhat lost control of his ship, and kind of decided to, well, if I'm not going to get out of this, I might as well try and take somebody else out with me. So it blended a little
even
thematic.
that, or was it even just he went out of control and just happened to slam into it?
I had read someplace that he got winged by something, and he lost some control, but still had some. So he decided to auger himself in. It wasn't.
It's just his girlfriend got shot down. Read the comic.
Really? Okay.
Actually,
Clearly,
yeah. There's a
speed.
really cool comic out there. I think it's Green Leader. Look it up.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. I may have to modify the scenario now. Get his girlfriend into the mix, right?
Oh, it's too late. It's too late. Might throw off the balance.
So if we've got a rebel ship that qualifies and the ISD is in this particular state, if the rebel ship moves such that it's now touching the bridge, so it moves over and then you back it up on the maneuver template, and so now it's touching, it's now eligible to perform this attack at the end of the activation phase. So this would be even after any bombs have gone off. So one of the strategies that the Imperial player will do is they'll start laying bombs, persistent bombs, on the approach paths to the to the bridge, to maybe offer a little bit of a last line of defense against this type of an attack. So if everything's lined up, he's touching the bridge, he's going to roll 4 attack dice. Every hit is going to count as one hull damage. Every critical hit is going to count as 2 hull damage. And he has the ability to flip any focus to hits. So there's a high likelihood that there's going to be some serious damage as a result of this attack. And when the bridge only has 5 hull, there's a pretty good chance that one suicide attack will end the game.
Yeah.
So that's when the Imperials start either they start killing all the rebel ships that have hull damage and ignoring the ones that don't have hull damage, or
right.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that definitely starts the Imperials will start questioning, should I really take this shot, or there's maybe 2 hull left on like a Y-wing. Do I think I'm going to be able to take him completely out with this shot, or or not? I'm sorry, with the A-wings, because they only have 2 hull left. It's like you either got to do it completely, or you're opening yourselves up to an even bigger problem. Okay, so moving on. Events. Yeah, special events. So during the end phase of every round, we're going to go through a few unique steps. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to check to see whether or not the game comes to conclusion, and that's based upon the 3 criteria that I mentioned earlier. Then you go ahead and perform all the normal cleanup and stuff associated with the end phase. Then we'll go ahead and pull one of those tracking tokens off of the turn pile, so that the clock is kind of winding down. And then the last thing we do in the end phase is both the Imperial player and the Rebel player will be rolling against a special event table. With the Imperials having the initiative, they will roll first, and they will resolve whatever the special event is that they get, and then the Rebel player will go ahead and do that then second, and that'll wind up completing the round. So let's talk just kind of briefly about what the special events are. Would anybody like to walk through that stuff, or you want me to keep talking?
Ooh, I want to do some of these.
It's all you, man. I'm reading a comic.
Screen leader. Okay, Jim. Go ahead.
Yeah,
it's all you, Jim.
Attention.
This is actually really, really cool. So
it's a really good comic. I'll put the link in the show notes.
Oh yeah, give me a link because I want to read it.
Oh, Jim, he posted. Never mind. You're supposed to be reading.
There it is.
It's my job to be distracted.
I
was looking
focus.
at the notes. I'm sorry. Look at the show notes. All right, Rebel special event table. So yeah, you roll the dice, and a hit is Rebel reinforcements. So you did go through with how many dice you roll, right? Or no?
No.
All right.
Go ahead.
Each person gets 3 red dice to throw, and when you, I'm sorry. No, actually, you roll 1 red die. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm so sorry. You roll 1 red die for your side to see what
how it happens, guys. Just pay attention. Pay attention close.
That's where it all starts.
When Jim runs this, just roll 3 dice. Rebels get 20 ships,
and the Imperials only get 1. No. No. So basically, you roll 1 die, and if you get a hit, which is the highest possibility, you get Rebel reinforcements. And at that point, you roll 3 red dice to see what those ships are. So a hit basically is a Red Squadron X-Wing, an eyeball is a Gray Squadron Y-Wing, blank is a Blue Squadron B-Wing, and a critical hit is a Green Squadron A-Wing. Now, I'm curious, did you put that so that the A-Wings were the hardest ones to get because they're the most powerful, or...?
I was trying to come at it from what do I think is going to be the most useful to a Rebel player. I kind of felt that the X-Wing would probably be the best well-rounded for whatever the strategy might be, and then kind of did an even split on the Y-Wing and the B-Wing just because they're bringing in a lot of ordnance. And then the A-Wing, and again, I'm not trying to downplay the A-Wing because I tell you the A-Wings can get across the board quick, and with the proton torpedoes and their agility, that's a pretty massive strike power. But in short, I was trying to, what do I think is going to be the most useful to the Rebel player at any point in time? And that's the way I structured it.
Gotcha. And then what you do is you roll a die 6 to see where each ship comes out on the board. You can pick all in one group as they come on the table, or you can split them up individually, or you can put 2 in one and 1 in the other, but you've got to designate it before you roll. Like you can't roll and say, oh yeah, all those guys, they're all going there. So I like that. And like, so it goes back to the idea of having the ships come out at different places unexpectedly, and how it changes the overall flow, the ebb and flow of the game. That's pretty cool. So that's cool. I like that. So that's what happens with a hit. And then comes eyeball. So if you get an eyeball, sensor jamming. The rebels have temporarily jammed Imperial sensors, flooding its targeting systems with hundreds of false tracks. The ISD and Imperial fighters may not target lock local rebel ships next turn. Any rebel ships with existing Imperial target locks are immediately lost. And that's really cool because those, like the bombers can't do it, and the missiles can't fire next turn. And if you happen to have target locks already, those are gone. So I really like that. I thought that was a pretty thematic and interesting little mechanic to throw in.
Yeah, that has proven to be probably the most dreaded result from the Imperial players. That's the one that they always groan about.
Cool.
Yeah. Because it really messes with them.
Because you've got at least, those particular missiles, the 4 missile pods.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not quite taking out half the ISD's weaponry, but pretty close by getting the sensor jamming. Yep.
When do you roll on the special event table?
End of the round.
The very
so
end.
They would still get a chance to So you wouldn't line up a torpedo shot and then lose your target lock right before you take the shot, pretty much. So you'd have a chance to pick it up again.
Right, like you don't move target lock before that very round, but if you set yourself up like, ooh, next round he's mine, oh crap.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so then blank. If you get a blank, the Falcon joins the fight. So you basically get Lando Calrissian in the Millennium Falcon. Actually, it's is it Nien Nunb who's the pilot?
Nien Nunb is the co-pilot. Lando is the pilot.
Flown by Lando Calrissian. So you've got Lando as the pilot, outmaneuver, homing missiles, Nien Nunb the crew. But then it says Lando crew?
Yeah, you've got a typo in there.
No, he's both flying and crewing the ship at the same time.
Okay, that's what threw me off before. So, all right, so you can use him for his Lando actions.
That doesn't seem right.
Lando Lakes.
Yep.
And that's not official by the book. I'm sure for page something.
What were you just saying before about him being the game master and be able to make up whatever he wants, something like that?
I didn't say that.
I think
it's true.
All right, and then you roll to see where that particular shows up. So you've got a pretty big, beefy ship with a homing missile and some nifty crew that could appear somewhere and start blasting the Yahoo out of the ISD. I think that's pretty cool.
Yep.
But what happens if it gets shot down?
Then it can't run into the belly of the Death Star 2 to blow it up.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess they lose. And then lastly, and so then what happens if you happen to roll that? If it comes in, let's say the first turn, and then you roll a blank again, you get nothing.
Well,
so I bet
no. I think
if this event is rolled again, there is no effect.
Oh, there's no effect. Oh, okay, I missed that.
You do not get to re-roll if you actually read the section before this section. You actually read the rules, Phil. So, I'm sure the Rebels have cussed a blank later in the game. Is that right?
I don't know. It depends, I guess, on how often it comes out. It's got the same odds as a focus, right? The blank does?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the addition of Lando in the special event table is a rather new addition in the scenario. For the longest time, rolling a blank on this table was a no effect. And the rebels, in comparison to the Imperials would always get something. It may not be useful, but they always got something. The rebels had, with the special event table, where they wouldn't get anything. Now the Falcon is at least a one-time, but after the Falcon's out on the board, blank is they didn't get anything as a special event that turn.
Yeah. And lastly, on the Rebel special table is a critical. So if you roll a critical, then you've got to roll again for the subtable. So section 7.4.1 shows
paragraph.
Right. It's an Avalon Hill game. So if you roll a hit, then it's the main armament destroyed. So Home 1 lays down a massive barrage, destroying one of the ISD's main armament cannons. The rebel player chooses one of the main cannons for destruction, and boom, you get points for it. So this is not the weapons pods that are firing at you. This is the not firing at you, but guns, you shoot them for points.
That is correct.
Free victory points right there. Boom.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you roll an eyeball, shield generator destroyed. A well-placed shot by Home 1 has destroyed a shield generator. The Imperial player chooses one operational shield generator for destruction. Notice the Imperial player picks. If both shield generators are inoperative, the Imperial player will choose one of the inoperative shield generators for destruction. So, yeah, I guess if they're both ionized or something like that?
Yeah, that being the key. Or if one is already destroyed, obviously that would be, inoperable. But what I'm really trying to do is force the hand of if you've only got one that's up and running, that's the guy that's gone, because that, in my mind, would be the one that Home 1 would be targeting. But if you really have to make a choice, I wanted the Imperial player to have kind of a tiebreaker choice.
Yeah.
Because you could, if the Rebel player got to choose, it could really, really hose over the Imperial.
Oh yeah, pick the damaged one that they're about to blow up anyways. Cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And my favorite one's next. Blank. Han will have the shield down. We've got to give him more time. End quote. So I love it. It's just the Rebel fleet pauses or presses deeper into the Imperial fleet formation, giving more protection. So it extends the game turn by 1 round. So basically they hide from the big, vapory blasting laser. That's cool. And then this last one is utterly deadly. If you roll a critical after a critical, reactor destroyed. So basically the internal reactor is blown. Those 6 energy you get every round is gone. Which is just going to be brutal.
Yep.
All right. And so that's all the Rebel special events. And let's see, I'll try not to take too much time with the Imperial ones. Let's see. So if you roll...
God, Jim, we should have just read this from cover to cover and been done with it, for crying out loud.
But these are so cool. That's why I just like it, and to have the game can change so much. So the Imperials, if you roll a hit, you get enforcements as well. But this time you get 2 attack dice. So your reinforcements, you get fewer than the Rebels, and I'm sure that these ships, potentially could be not as devastating. So if you roll a hit, you get a TIE interceptor. And if you roll an eyeball or a crit, you get a TIE fighter, Obsidian Squadron. So, I got 2 TIE fighters. Yay. The Rebels got 3 X-Wings,
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a little unbalanced, but the the Imperials have a lot. So, and a blank is the TIE bomber. So overall, you can get, TIE bombers, TIE fighters, TIE interceptors to come in, and they're randomly scattered around because they kind of edge in from somewhere else in the fight and give you more reinforcements. Aggressive commanders is an eyeball. So you roll an eyeball on your events, and your Imperial officers successfully motivate the weapons crew. So any hardpoint can make a free second attack after the first one, but at -1 red die. So let's say you've got your heavy laser cannon or something, or the 3 attack die. It goes choo choo choo. You fire, you hit, whatever. You can shoot again, but this time it's only 2 red dice.
Yeah, so that's potentially a lot more.
Yeah, that
attacks.
seems extremely powerful.
But the attack strength is reduced by 1, so.
And you have to use energy, don't you?
No, the second attack is free, so you're not going to spend any energy on that second attack. And yeah, this can be very devastating to the Rebel players. And in previous playtests, when this has come up, it has truly been the inopportune time for the Rebel player to have this come up. So it builds a great story when the game is all over with. It's like, do you remember when that happened? Yeah.
So I imagine if this, especially if it comes early when there's, I assume, more of the hard points still on the table.
Yeah. And the Imperials still have to have energy enough to fire a weapon. So, maybe these only got a couple energy left after doing shields, and he didn't spend the energy out to the weapons so much, or maybe that the Rebels have blown up anybody in range, or there's things that it could be devastating or it could be not that crazy.
And again, he's going to be rolling this at the end of the round. So this ability is going to go into the next round. So he'll know that he's going to be able to make the free second attack. And when he allocates out energy to the hard points, he's going to be taking that in consideration. Right. So, yep. It won't be wasted so much as he might not be able to take advantage of it.
Yeah. And then the Imperials, if they roll a blank, they get the Emperor's influence. The Emperor in the Death Star 2 reaches out in the Force and basically gets there are 4 reroll dice under the Imperial player's control. And he can pick any 4 dice for the next turn to be rerolled. So, your Rebel attacks did, like, you rolled 3 criticals because you're Magic Space Wizard. Oh, well, my Magic Space Wizard makes you re-roll those dice. You've got to re-roll your Rebel attack dice. I can do that to you because I'm the Emperor.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool. I like that.
And the re-rolls take place in that compare results step. So the Imperial player even gets to kind of see what's the lay of the land and then decide whether or not he's going to influence it. It's not something that has to be called when the Rebel player rolls or when he rolls. It's when it's all said and done. So it can really maximize the effectiveness of this ability.
Yeah. And then lastly, the Imperial critical is another reroll. So if you do a hit, a power relay comes back online. So you get that going. It's more energy and such. That's good. An eyeball is a weapon system back online. So, the rebels blew up your, assault missile turret. Boop, it's back. A blank is... Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station. And the Death Star fires and nukes the Rebel capital ship. Remove 1 turn token, so that, the time goes down by 1 as another capital ship gets blown to bits.
Yikes.
And then, lastly, a crit upon crit. Superstructure repair. Imperial technicians have successfully bypassed damaged systems. You can choose to add up to 2 points to a bridge or shield generator in hull. So you can bring back destroyed shield generators.
Mm-hmm.
That could be pretty cool.
Nice. So you can add hull to a completely destroyed shield generator?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. But if both shield generators are destroyed, you're not going to be able to. Those 2 points would have to go to the bridge. But if you happen to have one that's still alive, yes, you could apply it. Could apply it there, or to the other one. I even would say so. Yes, it can come back.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Cool. All right. Was there anything else that you wanted to discuss, or can we go to Q&A?
I would say Q&A, yes.
Okay. So, should we take turns? J-Bot, you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. So, and this most of mine are going to be stupid questions, so you should be prepared for that. Does the ISD start with full energy at everything?
When the game starts, it's going to be at 0 energy, but when it goes into its first activation phase, it's going to go ahead and get 10 energy because there's no opportunity for anything to be destroyed. So it'll get its 10 and then it goes through its allocation.
That's why I didn't know if it started with like all the guns pre-allocated with energy before the first turn. That's what I was curious.
No, it does not.
Cool.
One question I have is, so the power relay nodes, with so many targets on the table, do the rebels actually take those shots often? Or, I mean, I guess some games they have, but have there been some games where they just get ignored?
Yeah, there have been some games where they get ignored. And then there was one game in particular where they were being ignored, but there was a rebel ship, and that was the only target that he had. He one-shotted it, and then the resulting ionization effect was really brutal on the ISD player at that point in time. And that really opened up the eyes of the particular players in that game, and they started paying a little bit more attention to the power relays. So more often than not, they tend to be overlooked, but they can be pretty brutal, especially if you're taking out weapons that the rebel player gets to now say that weapon shall not be shooting. It's pretty potent.
Cool. Very cool. All right, Phil, your question?
Okay. How long has this scenario taken you to play in the past?
The longest that I had played, it was probably about 10 hours. And that was with people that had never played it before. And we're getting used to the rules. Right now it runs anywhere from about 5 hours to 8 hours, depending upon what happens. And we tend to be joking around a little bit. We're not as hard pressed, but yeah, that's about the duration that it's been running.
And is that with like people who've played it before?
No, there's usually a mix. People that have played it before as well as some new people. So in that time slot, there's usually somewhere about a half an hour of having to explain the rules and so forth. So
right, and I'm sure you have to explain things as you go, probably, right? You answer questions.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yes. Yep.
I have a question. So I know that Oh, okay,
you don't have
go.
You don't have a peace pipe.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
have
my
a
turn.
talking
stick. I have another dumb question for you. Where is the check victory step? Like the check, mission completion step? Is it at the end of phase, or is it immediately when the thing dies?
It's the end phase. At the very beginning of the end phase is when we check for victory conditions.
Okay.
Yep.
I was curious, I guess, because I wanted to know if the whole critical, adding 2 more hull back to the things, like, oh, we just blew up the bridge, but we just magically rolled the crit and it got 2. Does that make sense? I wanted to make sure those 2 things were happening in the right order for my mind.
Yep, and that won't happen because you check to see whether or not the bridge has been destroyed before you would be rolling on the special event table to where you could potentially gain the hull back. So that's just not possible.
Yeah, and obviously that makes sense. It was more just a lot of times it's like, oh, as soon as that last hull point is done to the bridge, boom, the whole thing ends. Is that how you tend to run it? Like it just, as soon as the last hull point comes off, everybody's just like, oh, or on the Empire side, oh, that was it. Because there's nothing left for them to do. Or do you bother finishing out that turn? How does that tend to go?
When we do actually have the bridge destroyed, with the way the point system is set up, there's no way for the Imperial player to win. If you get all 5 hull destroyed from the Rebel player, the game is effectively over. I don't recall us ever playing anything out after the 5th hull has been hit on the bridge.
Yeah.
But I can certainly see situations where, although it may look bleak, you would want to play it through because there's maybe the possibility of the point shift as a result of how many Rebel ships are on the board at the end of the game. You may be in a situation based upon the number of main armament destroyed and hull damage that the point shift based upon that bonus could determine win or lose.
Right, because if the
And how often does it come down to destruction or points in your kind of history of doing this?
It's probably about 1/3 of the time, the rebels are completely eradicated from the board. 1/3, the bridge has been destroyed, and probably the remaining third has been, it goes to the end of the game as far as the turn counters.
Ah, gotcha.
Rough scale. It's about equal distribution off of memory.
All right, now you can ask your question, Jim.
And also, I'll say, if you had read the rules, you would actually have read when the check victory step is, because it's in there. But
but I don't read rules, so far as you would expect that.
I just was saying that I knew because I read. I'm just pointing that out. Anyways, so I know that probably you working on this is a bit cyclical because you probably run it for Gencon, and then you want to you practice it and tweak it, and then Gencon comes, you maybe tweak it a little bit more, and you put it away for a while because you just did the heck out of it. And then the next time comes up, you start tweaking it. You pull it out to practice again. But how long have you been working on this particular scenario?
This one's been in work for a little over 2 years now, and I'm really fortunate in that I've had a real good group of playtesters that are motivated, think this scenario is a lot of fun, and they have provided me with a lot of good feedback and changes. Like the whole bring in Lando was a suggestion that the play test group had, and we tried it. We liked the effect of it. So, yeah, it's been a long, arduous process, and this is the third major revision to this game. The first one and the second one don't look anything like what this version is its current state is. So we've gone through a lot of changes, and we probably, if I were to average this, it probably only gets played maybe once every 2 to 3 months. So there's a long time between plays, which kind of helps. You don't necessarily get burnt out on it then either.
Yeah, that's not a bad number of games played either.
Yeah, and it's worth it because you get out you've got the train pieces, you've got the custom mat, and you've painted everything, and you've built these rules. It is nice to kind of bust out every once in a while. Probably a nice beer and pretzels time.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Phil, you got the talking stick.
Okay.
The Ewok skull. In a typical game, how often are Imperial fighters targeted by the rebels?
That's a good question. It really depends on what the strategy that the rebels start the game with. Sometimes the strategy is we're going to kind of ignore the Imperial fighters unless they happen to kind of wander in front of us, and we're going to focus in on the ISD targets. There's another strategy that the rebels have employed where they'll dedicate a portion of their forces to go tangle with the Imperials to keep them off of the fighters that are going to go hit the bridge or main armament. So if I could kind of generalize it, probably a third of the games that are played, there's a real good mix-up between the rebels and the Imperials at some level, to where you've got rebel fighters that are, no kidding, trying to dogfight the Imperials. The other 2/3, it tends to be, if the shot is there, I'm going to take it, but otherwise I'm focused primarily on the ISD.
Right.
Have you seen one particular strategy by the rebels be more effective than the others? Like, the rebels have to dogfight a little bit to have a chance, or, you're getting too mixed up in the dogfight really screws you because the turrets then take you out?
So that is probably the most interesting thing that I find with this scenario, is that there really isn't one strategy that has truly been effective, especially with the change to having to destroy the 2 shield generators before the bridge can take damage. It used to be if you would just get 4 or 5 of the rebel ships and make a beeline for the bridge, do the kind of suicide run, that was pretty much a guaranteed success. But since we've gone away from that, the rebels have been successful with going after main armaments in a few of the play tests. It was close, but they've been successful. And there's been times where the Imperials have just, hey, I'm going to go take out the bridge and the superstructure, and it's worked out for them. And there's also been times where it's been an utter failure. And I tend to think when it's been an utter failure, there hasn't been enough, I'll call it kind of coordination with the rebel forces. It's a little bit more of a haphazard. You decide you're going to send the A-wings to go tangle with the interceptors. although that might be an equal match, the A-wings aren't going to last very long. They're going to get, not only are they going to get picked upon by the interceptors, but they're getting picked upon by, maybe the ISD weaponry. You also have to be really careful about sending the A-wings, the Y-wings and the B-wings anywhere close to the tractor beams that are going to be on the ISD. If the tractor beams get a hold of a Y-wing or a B-wing, they're no longer going to have any defense dice because you're going to lose the 1 agility from the tractor beam token. And then if you get ganged up on by TIE fighters, Imperial ships, or even the ISD weaponry, get caught on a crossfire, it's easy for a Y-wing or a B-wing to go from full health to being off the board in one turn. So you can apply a strategy by sending the guys with the big weaponry straight at the bridge, but they get picked apart because you're not staying away from the tractor beams or whatever. You're not kind of adapting to what's happening. It's still a lot of fun. It just can be sometimes brutal. It can be absolutely brutal sometimes.
I didn't even think that you could win by just destroying the main weaponry and not even going for the tower.
Yeah, it is. If you take out all of the main weaponry, I do believe that there is a scenario where it's an automatic win for the rebels.
Because I just would think go for the gold, but it might be a lot better to actually go for the main weapons, just destroy them all.
So
that's actually really cool.
The main weaponry, you've got a lot more targets. Individually, they're a little bit harder to take out, but you compare that to the quote unquote long, arduous journey to get up to the superstructure.
Right.
And even though it's a easier target, there's not as many shield and hull. So you've got less that you've got to destroy, but you just got to get there. And that's what makes the reinforcements really, really interesting, because all of a sudden you got somebody in the backyard, if you will, of the ISD, and there may not be any Imperial fighters within the vicinity, and you've got 3 fighters that might be just taking a leisurely stroll towards the bridge, getting ready to take things out. So,
or again, some of the main weaponry on the other side that's been ignored, or
exactly,
yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
And it all, that role of where the reinforcements are going to come, all of a sudden opens up a whole different decision tree, not only for the Imperials, but certainly for the rebels, based upon what's going to happen.
I think a subtle kind of decision in this is the 4x6 table. I don't think that can be kind of, understated, because it's a lot further across than you think. We've played on a 4x6 table a couple times now, and it doesn't seem like much, but that extra foot is a long way, especially for a slower ship. So like in our Beggar's Canyon, the guy with the Arc 170, it took him ages to get that thing, laboring across the table. Meanwhile, the faster ships like the A-Wings and Protectorates were just zooming all over the place. So, but that extra foot one direction and extra 2 feet the other direction is a lot more territory than you actually think it is. So, actually 3 feet that extra direction. So it's a huge table space. So that straight run would scare me. I mean, I can see it and I get the idea. Oh, this might just be just a really big suicide run, but I think it's more suicide than it is run. Like, it's what it looks like. Oh, they're coming right at us. Just gun them down. We've got so many guns that lay over the center of this thing that it's almost futile to do it if you can't make it like really fast.
And that's where like X-Wings, I think, really shine, because they're faster than B-Wings, but they've got more firepower than an A-Wing, and that's where the X-Wing, the T-65 does shine. But yeah, I think overall this mission, I really can't wait, because part of it is it's really cool with the nuance to it, but the terrain for it, I'm also really excited for. So I really can't wait to play this.
Yeah, and I got one last question for you. Then I'll let you guys have it. What you mentioned at the very beginning that you took it, I believe you said, to the 2016 Gen Con and came home like almost with your tail between your legs. What was the big mistake that you recall from the first time that you took it to, and what you think you've changed.
Sure. Just to give you an impression, because at 2016 Gen Con, it was not this scenario. Although it was still a 4x6, I had the angry triangle completely within the 4x6 boundary. So very much smaller scale than what I have now. So a lot of the play area was actually empty space, because unlike this one where 99% of the map area is ISD. So I was really limited on where the ISD's defenses could be placed. And essentially half of my play surface was unusable because it was mostly just the vacuum of space up at the bow part of the ISD. So it led to a very lopsided dynamic in that the Imperial player, or I'm sorry, the Rebel players could kind of hang out in the bow section and not engage the ISD, wait for the Imperial fighters to approach them, and then duke it out. And if there are any Rebels left over, now they've kind of got, to some extent, free reign of the ISD because I had no reinforcements in the mission scenario at all. But the big thing that made me realize that I really had a lousy scenario was the Rebel players that did not, because I ran it at a couple of sessions, the one Rebel players that actually did go ahead, engage the ISD and the Imperial fighters, their comment was, I don't feel like I'm playing X-Wing. I'm spending so much time interacting with the ISD that I just don't feel like I'm playing X-Wing. He wasn't doing the dogfighting and so forth. So that one really hit home as in, okay, I really need to figure out a different play surface. Obviously, I wasn't going to abandon the ISD, but different play surface, try to drive for more of that ship-to-ship engagement, but still remain thematic to, you can't ignore the ISD. You know, if you want to win this, you're going to have to do something with the ISD. So it was brutal. I mean, the guys that were playing, they were having an absolute great time, but I tell you, they were ripping apart the scenario, cracking jokes left and right. They were having a great time, but they were brutal, and rightfully so. They were brutal, but we were still having a great time. They were playing X-Wing. They were really, really happy, but it was abundantly clear after Gen Con last year that it needed a major rework. And this is what we've got now.
I like it.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Cool. All right, and so with that, I think we've got a full episode. Do you think we hit the hour mark?
Just barely.
Yeah, give or take a few minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. How about that?
Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
God help us if we ask for the bag of nuts.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, everybody. Well, I think that should do it for this particular episode. So we'll go ahead and see you next time as we're approaching Endor. All right, Ewoks, take it away.